Welcome to another episode of An Intimate Conversation with Women of Color. This is a podcast as well as a YouTube channel. So make sure that you subscribe, you share, you listen and watch, and come back every week. I appreciate each and every one of you. Shout out to my folks across the seas in the UK, in Africa, the various continents. Thank you so much for being a listener, and for some of you also watching. Today's guest is Ericka Murria. Ericka is the creator of @IamEvidence brand, @I_am_evidence_brand. She's a social justice advocate against domestic violence, sexual assault. She's a national inspirational speaker, aspiring author, and candidate for Detroit City Council District 7. Ericka, you have to tell us where District 7 is. I'm a Detroit resident. And tell us more about you, Ericka, and welcome.
Thank you so much. So I guess I am all of those things, right? So many hats, but it's a pleasure and a blessing to have tapped into my purpose. I really believe that God has given me the opportunity at an early age to find my purpose and advocate for community on so many different levels. So I am a social justice activist, a community organizer. I have a nonprofit organization that I founded in 2011. Called Supreme Transitions. And what we do with Supreme Transitions is we assist community members in becoming totally self-sufficient. And we do that in a unique way by being culturally specific and doing an in-depth intake. So most organizations, they just kind of pull you in, ask the basic demographic questions, but we want to know the real issues that have kind of hindered our community members in a culturally specific way, because, you know, in our community, we have some certain challenges, whether it's credit repair or needing a second chance bank account, understanding budgeting, child support. We do assist men as well with getting their budget together for child support and parenting time. Excuse me. So Supreme Transitions is a grassroots agency. We are not federally funded yet, but we have boots on the ground. I mentioned that because I also work as a consultant for Futures Without Violence, which is a national agency. And I also work as a consultant with UJIMA, which is a national agency against domestic violence. So I consult with them on the intersection of domestic violence and the child welfare system to reimagine the policies that have affected and re-victimized community members here in Detroit. So that's a big thing to kind of take on, because if you understand domestic violence, that is the root cause of a lot of symptoms of other things that are happening in our community, such as homelessness, substance abuse. Domestic violence, it just really touches so many different areas in the African American community. So working on those projects to reimagine those policies has been amazing. Number one, who'd have thought, you know, this young lady from Detroit, District 7, will have these opportunities. I've worked with the Detroit Police Department as an embedded advocate, assisting community members who needed safety planning and personal protection orders. That was a pleasure. I'm still an added resource at the 9th precinct. Whenever they call, I'm available. District 7 is the zip codes 48227, 48228, 48204, and 48238. So it's pretty big. So if you can just kind of picture like Central High School, all the way to Ridge Park, from Warren Ave, kind of a little bit of Schoolcraft and Finkel area. So it's pretty big.
That's huge.
A task, but I'm a legacy Detroiter. Yeah,
that's huge. And so
I'm a legacy Detroiter.
Yeah. So for those who are not familiar with Detroit, that's an expansive reach, right? Because you said from Central High School, so basically over Dexter Davison, all the way to Rouge Park.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
That's huge. That is
Yep.
definitely huge. Good for
But
you.
the issue with that is that the borderlines for the districts that they created, so it touches on like small little areas from Central High School to
Okay.
McKenzie High School. It just kind of dips and curves. The bulk of our district is in Schoolcraft area,
Okay.
Joy Road district, Warrendale community. So that's pretty much the bulk of us, but it
Yeah.
kind of zigzags around those edges.
Yeah. And so that bulk area, that's outside of Dearborn, right? That's like,
That is,
yeah.
yes.
So again, for people who are not Detroiters, if you're familiar with Dearborn, which Ford has a heavy presence in that area, just to kind of give a picture for those that are listening. So you're doing a lot and you're doing some great stuff. Yes, you are absolutely doing some great stuff. I'm listening to you. I love the approach to the community organizers, right? Giving them the tools that they need to be successful and not just saying, okay, yep, sign up and you're good to go. Here's a clipboard, but doing a little bit more is definitely needed to make them effective, right? Because in order for you to make change, to affect change, you have to be effective. And so sounds like what you're doing is providing those tools to help people to be able to impact change, the change that's needed in all those areas that you mentioned. And so again, talking about being culturally specific, we're talking about Black women, we're talking about women of color and victims and survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault. Why is it important for them to have a platform to use their voices?
Well, again, I'm a legacy Detroiter. I'm 37. I'll be 38 in July. But my family has been in District 7 since the mid-50s, before there were district lines. And they've always been beacons of hope. They've always been, block club members and presidents, neighborhood moms, right? And so that's a part of who I am.
Yeah.
I really don't know anything else other than if my neighbor has an issue, then I have an issue. And I've been an advocate without even knowing I was an advocate. I can remember being in elementary school and my grandmother telling me to call DTE for her. Like, here's the number, dial it, tell them I need a payment arrangement, whatever was needed, and you're laughing because I'm sure you can connect, right? We've all had to wear those hats at very early ages. And so in communities of color, we believe in that, right? We believe in locking arms. We believe in helping each other get to the next level, sharing resources and sharing information. And so somewhere along the lines, I believe that we kind of lost sight of that. So that's why I think it's important for us to reimagine Detroit district by district so we can reimagine our state, right? And we can get back to some of those core values, safety, lighting, block clubs, police presence, where your neighbors were police officers and firefighters and teachers. I think our communities will be a lot more safe, right? And productive. And so even now with small business, District 7 is diverse. We have Muslims and Chaldeans and, Hispanics, Latinx, African American people. We have so many different people, including marginalized, even more marginalized communities like the LGBTQ community, right? That don't have access and equity to certain things. We don't have those things tangible in walking distance, or it's not safe to catch the bus sometimes. And so instead of allowing the systems over time that have kind of changed in Detroit to not be able to connect to what we want, actually need, I think it's time for our voices to be back at the table.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you talked about, and you've been talking about it the whole time, key is the community, right? It's for people coming together. And that's how we are broken up. And a lot of it is systemic and systematic to keep us apart, right? I know I've read various things, you see the data, and even just going back historically, and I forget who it is, a quote, but basically keeping us apart, because if we came together, we would be stronger. right? That hold better together, and we're stronger together and all of that. And so you're doing that, and you're also equipping other people to be able to bring the Latinx, the Muslim, the LGBTQ, the Black folks together in the communities, because that's power. There's power in numbers. And for us, when you said, if you have an issue, I have an issue. And so when people are taking that on, then absolutely you work together to make change, to get things improved, the things that you're fighting for.
Even, equity for sex workers, right? There is a group of people like myself who identify as survivors and victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. But then there are other people in our community who actually are employed, as a sex worker, and they need safety as well, right? And so to not make anyone feel that their choices will keep them separate, because if we're all community, I can remember, and I've heard stories, from my aunts and my mom about some other community members who had different lifestyles, but the community protected them.
Yeah.
Right. It was certain people who decided to do certain things, but the men in the neighborhood, they made sure nobody else would hurt that person. Right. And so now I really feel like when we talk about reimagining, right, it can't be as siloed as it has been for the last 20, 30 years. New waves, right? We have to incorporate core values with the current times. So as new waves of community members are now being bold enough to stand up and say, this is me, they also deserve, love and respect. And pride, it's Pride Month. Yeah. So you should have pride in whoever you choose to be in this life, right? And so safety, that's a huge thing for me. But you did ask me about making a platform for survivors of violence's voice. And it's important because, just like I said, we all deserve love, respect, and kindness, and to be able to hold our head high. One thing that I experienced while moving through the different channels of going forward with my rape kit that has sat on the shelf of a police abandoned warehouse for over 12 years was the shame associated with it. And a part of my therapy was learning that the shame of what happened to me was not mine to carry. Yeah. It belonged to the person that hurt me. Yes. And so it's very important to empower people to find their voice again, because whatever happened to you, it doesn't define you. So creating, the t-shirt with the moniker, I am evidence, it means so much more than just I'm evidence that's sitting on a shelf. Wow. I'm evidence that prayer works. I'm evidence that meditation and alternative healing practices do work. It doesn't have to necessarily be Christian values. It can be whatever you believe that inspires you to tap into the God inside of you, right? To be stronger and use your voice to empower others. I've gotten so many messages by social media internationally after doing the film I Am Evidence with the activist and actress Mariska Hargitay and our Wayne County prosecutor Kim Worthy, that brought attention to the untested rape kits nationally. So many people internationally have just said, thank you for your courage. Yeah. And I don't even think they realized I did it scared, Yeah. I did it afraid. My family didn't know. This was my biggest secret. And then at this point, 12 and a half years later, now I'm a mom. So of 2 daughters. So I had to find balance and courage, even more courage, to explain that to my daughters so that they can be educated and also empowered and not be ashamed, because we're talking about HBO. So their friends may see the cool mom talking about some things that are very private, and they may be approached. So I thought it was very important when I decided to do that documentary, when I finally decided, because it was not an overnight decision. When I finally did decide to do the documentary, I had to prioritize my daughters first. that was actually 4 years ago. And I was looking at running for city council then. And so I decided not to run to make sure that my daughters and my extended family could understand what I was actually going through and that I can understand it, right? It was a lot.
Yeah, and and I wanted to even talk to you about the experience, the I am evidence. So you're using your voice to advocate for others. You're running for city council. You said that that's what you're talking about. So tell us more about your involvement with both. Again, with the movie as well as with the city council. Like, where are you today with that? I know that you talked about, like, you're supposed to be in 5 places at one time, right? So I'm sure you're gonna have those days often. But where are you with that, as well as talk more about the documentary?
The documentary kind of landed in my lap. I was actually speaking in DC for policy reform for the African American and communities of color. What was economic justice? What does economic justice look like for us? And while I was there, I had already had the t-shirt, and I'm wearing it everywhere. God tricked me. And I'm sitting at this table full of beautiful women from all over. And this one lady from Atlanta, she looked at my shirt and she naturally just assumed, because it has the Detroit D, that I was talking about the rape kits. And she asked me what was happening with it. And I snapped, and I'm never really nasty, right? But I snapped at her and I was like, I don't know. It's Googleable, like Google it. And at lunch, I went to my hotel room. My sister lives in Maryland, and she came over for the lunch break with me. And I was just crying uncontrollably in my hotel room.
You're muted.
Can you hear me?
I hear you now. So going back to your sister came over, you're crying.
Yeah, and I'm like, she's like, what is wrong with you? And I said, I'm wearing this shirt and I didn't want people to know, and she didn't know.
Yeah.
So I had to share with my sister at that moment. And she said, well, God didn't trick you. He's using you, right? And so you have to be able to be used. And you already got the damn shirt on,
So what do you expect?
So I came home and Kalima Johnson from the Sasha Center, she invited me to come as a speaker and facilitate a healing circle. And she asked me to talk about I am evidence and the shirt. And I was looking like, why does everybody keep asking me all of a sudden about this shirt? So again, now I'm crying and I'm telling people, like, I'm evidence sitting on a shelf. And she called me later and she said that a documentary team from New York had reached out to her looking for survivors from the backlog. And she said, I know you speak and you travel, and I don't really know what you talk about, but I know you talk. Can you come and share your story? And I said, hell no. Why would I do that? And so she asked me again, and I was actually scheduled to speak in California at the same time that she had this scheduled with the documentary team. And God orchestrated it all. Everything kind of fell apart for one, but fell completely in place for the other. And so I filmed at her office, and that was my first time telling my story to anybody. And so then they called me back, the documentary team, and they said, well, this is not just the film crew. This is actually a project of Mariska Hargitay from Law and Order SVU. And I was like, what? Liv Benson? So
okay, exactly.
So I went with it, right? And they said that when she and others had saw some of the raw footage of me, they wanted to honor me and my story, as this was my first time sharing it, and rename the documentary after my company. And so I still own the rights to my company. That she was very graceful and didn't bully me. And so that's legacy work, right? My daughters will always own it. and it has won so many awards and so many national and international recognitions. And my face, I mean, it's just all over with, I think this one particular quote that says that I am evidence that these kits are not just boxes on the shelf. I'm evidence that these are people. So that's one of the things, right? And I still can't believe it. When I look back at the film, I'm like, who is that girl? Like, I
Yeah.
don't even know her anymore. Yeah.
That, you know what, that's so amazing. And so as you're talking, what I'm thinking about is catch up to the vision. So
Mhm.
what you just described is what I refer to as that. And for me is it's things that are going to happen that you don't know about it just yet. So you have a choice to, when it's presented to you, to either catch up to it or not. And so that's what you were experiencing. You know, those people, they knew that something bigger than what you knew, what you were aware of, was out there for you, your sister in particular, they knew, right? And when they brought it to your attention, you had a choice. Either I'm leaning
Yeah.
into this or I'm not. And you leaned into it because that's what you were supposed to. That was your destiny. And so hearing you say that, I mean, wow, right?
Yeah.
Wow. And so you were able to help and still are able to, through this, help so many people in similar and same situations, as well as to help build that legacy. Something for
Yes.
your daughters. You taught them so many different things. You taught them about your experience being vulnerable, because that's huge for you to share all of that with people, your vulnerability, and that's okay. You know, also how to, you know, protect themselves as best as you can. You know, predators are predators, but to equip them and other people. And then again, the residual value and benefits that will come with that. Because you name some powerhouses. Liv, Mariska Hargitay, girl, she's, you know, she's a big name. You know, probably one of the highest paid women on people on TV. HBO, you know, so you weren't just doing something that we, you know, just go on YouTube to see and whatnot, and not that that's a problem, but you're doing something on a huge network, right? A huge cable station.
Absolutely. I
So
mean, it blows me away when I think back to the memories, right? Like walking into HBO, like I kept telling people, we talking about home box office.
right,
Like,
right. Well, let me ask you this question. So when you wore the shirt, what did you think? What did you
I
think?
so my brother actually, I was actually interviewed by Tracy McCaskill
Oh,
as a grassroots agency doing work in community for one of her segments that she had when she was still on FM radio. And I think it was titled like "Who Does She Think She Is" or something. She was spotlighting
mm,
women in community. And when I woke up that morning to get dressed, because I take my daughters with me everywhere, every interview, every training, they're there. They are baby advocates, right?
yeah.
And so when I woke up that morning, I kept hearing in my mind, I am evidence. And I was like, what is it? You know, and I got in the shower and I kept hearing it and it got louder and louder until I said it back out loud. And so I heard, I am evidence. And I said it back like, I am evidence. And I was like, okay. So I go to the interview with Tracy, and she knows about me being homeless and losing my mom at an early age. She knows about all of those different things in my life. And she said, well, what's one thing that you want people to take away from your testimony?
Yeah.
And I was not expecting that question. That wasn't the normal questions that people usually ask. And I said, I am evidence. so, and so she said, girl, you better put that on a shirt. If you don't put it on a shirt, I will. So instantly I called my brother Daryl and I was like, I need you to make me a shirt, because we had just kind of start dabbling in the t-shirt making at
Yeah.
that time. And I said, I wanted to say I am evidence, but I want the D to be a Detroit D. And he was like, okay, it's gonna be 20 something dollars for the first shirt. I said, I have nobody, you know. So he said, okay, I'm gonna make you two. Now you got to get some pre-orders, and he was telling me how to work the system and be a saleswoman and all
Yeah.
this stuff, and set up a website and set up a Facebook. And I was like, okay. So when I got to him, he hugged me. He said, sis, I don't know what this is, but it's bigger than you think. And I was like, well, yeah, because we're gonna highlight, people in community. I'm gonna give me a talk show, and we're gonna talk about people who could have been something else, but they turned out to be something different. We had a lot of bad press at that time with, our former mayor, Mr. Kilpatrick, and that was national news. And I said, I just think we need to talk about on a national level, talk about people who are evidence of something good and new. Something, that people are not hearing about. And he was like, yeah, but it's gonna be something else. It's gonna be real big. And not even a year later, it just turned into I Am Evidence, the documentary on HBO. So all
again,
blessed.
those catch up to the vision moments, all of that, those different people that were speaking to you. And so you thought you was just wearing your shirt for your business when you went to DC. Again, catching up to the vision, so much larger than you. That's how things happen, right? And so, for those who are listening and watching, things happen that way. There's times that people are speaking things into existence for you. Take heed, listen to those things, and move accordingly, because you never know what's around the corner. You might be on an HBO documentary. You may be running for an office. You may be leaving legacy for your children. There's so many things that you could be planting for other people by catching up to that vision. So some women don't recognize the power of their voices, and I'm sure you've run into them, right? And I define using your voice as speaking, writing, maybe even dancing, just different ways of expressing yourself. What have you told those women who haven't recognized their voices?
That is coming.
Wow.
That is coming. Don't worry. Don't think about it too much. Because even for me, I had no clue that this would be my freedom. I literally have it in my calendar from that first week 4 years ago that I filmed 5 days, and I have it saved as my freedom week. That's the week that I got my freedom, talking about this issue. And everybody's not going to be okay with sharing something so intimate. But do it your own way.
Yeah.
And then I also encourage some people that may have some similarities, do it anyways. Do it scared. Do it with one arm, with one eye, with no money. Do it anyways. You never know, who will sow a seed into you. Like my brother, he was like, well, one shirt will be 25. I don't got no money. Barely got gas to get to you to get the shirt, but do it anyways.
Yeah.
Me and my sister talk about that a lot. I think that community, we have experienced so many loss and so many hardships that it's hard for people to be bold, and it's hard for people to dream big and to believe that what happened for me can happen for them. I don't think that was the case for me because I didn't know anybody who had a situation like this. It was just like, okay, well, let's see what's about to happen next. And I'm the type of person, well, they said, well, okay, Ericka, we're going to fight over here. I'm running full speed ahead. And then I look around and I'm like, well, nobody told me I was in a fight. I'm in the middle of a burning house by myself with a cup of water, So, but once I got in that burning house and I looked around and I learned how to breathe. So therapy is important. That's something else I wanted to make mention, was that it was not easy. And thankfully, through the Joyful Heart organization, Mariska's organization, they did afford I think it's like 12 survivors total who were interviewed. I think it's like 4 of us here in Detroit, but they gave us so many resources for mental health. I mean, it was kind of like, well, you here now and we got to do it. You got to do the therapy. But I think all of us welcomed it because it was so triggering, right? And we didn't know, like in that burning house, like, how do I get out? And so the mental health services that they provided gave us a clear pathway and an avenue out, right?
Yeah.
And they were respectful of culturally specific services. One particular day, I was like, I can't drive. I can't take my daughters to school. I can't pick them up. And I don't know what's happening inside of me. I know it's not me,
Yeah.
but it's something happening inside of me. And I need somebody at my house today.
Ugh.
And call my other mother because she'll be able to help you because I can't figure it out right now. And they reached in, they called my Umi, and she said, yep, we want a Black therapist. We want somebody that can be mobile. And they made sure that that person was taken care of on a monetary level, and appropriately, right? To honor her services. So I'm just blessed, right? And so now I know how to breathe. I know how to take those pauses to get my grounding and get my footing and be able to redirect my vision so that I don't just see the flames in front of me. I can literally see where all of the exits are, right?
Yeah.
And make my way.
I love that. And you know what? So I had a conversation with somebody today and they just happened to mention, yeah, my therapist, and you're hearing that more. So people are starting to normalize taking care of themselves. We just saw it on a huge stage with Naomi Osaka was like, look, I'm out because I need to take care of me. And we're starting to do that more. And we need to do that because we've gotten away from taking care of ourselves. We've gotten to the point where, and even beyond taking care of others, it's just been, I don't know, just pushed down for so long and put in a box. And now people are like, nope, sorry, I'm out of that box. And I need to take care of me. So if that means seeing a therapist, seeing a life coach, if that means, getting away, shutting the door, leaving the country, because plenty of people are doing that, whatever that means for you, people are doing it. And so I love that we're normalizing taking care of ourselves.
And destigmatizing it.
Yes. That's
because you are not quote unquote crazy.
Yeah.
Because you need healing services.
Yeah.
And the best way to describe it, and I think that a lot of national agencies of color have done a great job of putting out infographics and information that people can kind of look at and digest on their own. It's not somebody telling you need to talk to somebody. They kind of scrolling on social media and they come across a post that says, seeing a therapist is just as important as seeing a dentist or seeing a regular physician, right? My sister is in dental hygiene and she talks about the oral systemic link. So the link from your mouth and your oral hygiene to the rest of your body. And that a good dental hygienist will tell you sometimes, you need to go to an emergency room. You need to see this type of doctor or that type of doctor before we can do services on your mouth. So understanding those systemic links in your body. If you believe that seeing a surgeon when your leg is hanging off, you need to see a mental health physician if anything is rattling a little loose,
Absolutely. And you know what? And so mentioning the different ways that we're seeing it, I just finished reading Terry McMillan's most recent book, something about, it's not downhill from here. But what I took away from that book, now mind you, it's fiction, right? What I took away, the main character's daughter was abusing alcohol and possibly other drugs. And so of course people are just looking at that. But when they peeled back, she actually had she was suffering depression. And that's why she was drinking and doing the things that she was doing. And so in the book, the character is like 40, 41. I remember asking someone on a previous show and even thinking about it, like people get to that age and older and whatnot, and they may commit suicide. And you learn that they had a disorder, they may have, they were depressed, et cetera. And you wonder, why then? You know what I'm saying? Like you've lived just almost a full life and now, but reading that book gave me a different perspective because sometimes you're able to deal with it by numbing it. But then you get to a point where, you know what, I can't anymore. And so an unlikely resource opened my eyes and kind of answer some questions that I had, which kind of leads me into thinking about dreams deferred.
Yeah.
You know, my sister wrote the book. My sister died in October. I don't know if you know her, you know, because some of the things that you shared, she's experienced as well. Again, we're all in Detroit. Soul True was her name, her artist name. And so reflecting on that book made me think about, were there any dreams that I deferred, that I delayed? And so I wanted to raise that in every episode for people to start thinking if there's something that they wanted to do and for whatever reason they never, you know, follow through. So have you had a dream deferred? And if so, where are you at with it? Because you're doing a lot of stuff, you're moving, you know what I'm saying? And you know, you did mention one. So running for city council, you wanted to do that before, and then you put your children first at that time. But anything else comes to mind for you when I say dream deferred?
It's really interesting. So many different thoughts came up listening to you, and I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Last year was just hard. You know, everybody didn't pass from COVID, but we lost just a lot of people, you know, just natural causes, so many different ways, right, of losing loved ones. And I think that also goes into what we were talking about mental health, right? And learning how to honor our ancestors and our loved ones. The dream deferred, it made me remember that when I was in elementary school, you know, and they always ask little kids, we always do, we ask little kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I can remember my answer was, I want to be on TV. And so And so my grandfather, who's my favorite guy, he's still here at 85. I remember him asking me that. And I said, well, Grandpa, I want to be on TV. And he said, well, are you going to report the news? He said, if you're going to report the news, make sure you stay thin, make sure you go to school, make sure you do all these different things. He said, because the news ladies, you know, he was just telling me all these different things. And that stuck with me forever. And so I'm a teen mom, right? I had my oldest daughter when I was a senior in high school. And my goal was to go to New York to college so that I can pursue a journalism career because I wanted to be on TV. So, I just knew my grandpa said I was going to be on the news because I wanted to be on TV. But having a daughter, being homeless, experiencing domestic violence, not even knowing that I was surviving domestic violence. And there's so many different facets of domestic violence, right? So the financial abuse, the emotional abuse, the physical abuse, I was experiencing all of those things as a teen mom. And myself, as my mother passed away when I was 16. So now I'm going into motherhood without a mom and experiencing all of these different things. And I just remember saying, once I got the acceptance letter from Syracuse, I can't go to Syracuse, not with a baby at 17 years old. Who's going to help me? And the school reached in and they said, well, we have dorms for moms. And I'm like, I'm not taking a baby to college. You know, who takes a baby to college? I want to be normal when I go to college. And then I have military family members. My dad is a retired Marine and his family are all servicemen. And so I said, well, I guess, you know, I'll go into the military. But I didn't want to, right? Because then they said I would have to leave my daughter behind until I finished boot camp. And I was like, no, I can't leave my baby, right? So I went from, I can't take a baby to I can't leave a baby. And so I just knew that one day I wanted to be able to impact the world and I wanted to be on TV and I wanted to bring news to community and I still had to be a mom. But God has a way. Our ancestors have a way of creating a path for us, right? And you just have to keep taking one step at a time, regardless to how grandiose you think it will be. And one beautiful thing is when you're young, you don't see hurdles, you don't see barriers, you don't see life, right? As tough as life can sometimes be. So for me, it was like, well, I'm just gonna get through this thing and then I'll get to where I'm trying to go. But for me, it was nonstop, just hurdle after hurdle after hurdle. And I got this baby, right? So a lot of dreams have been deferred. One goal is graduating from college. I've been a college student for 20 years. Baby is now 20, right? And she's in school. But I'm still chipping away at this thing a little at a time and one foot in front of the other. But it has not stopped me from accomplishing my goals because I do have life experience. And I'm confident enough that my voice has power. So although I'm in a lot of rooms, national spaces with people with several degrees, and I don't have those, and I'm not a journalist, and all of those different things that I thought I would become, I still do exactly what I thought I would do in elementary school.
Yeah, you are.
I'm always on the move.
You are. It's not that exact way that you were thinking you wanted to do it, but you're still doing it. And that's the thing. And for our listeners and those that are watching, to take away is that you could have a dream, and often you are living that dream. It's in a different package. And so when you take the
you just
time
got to trust the process.
Yeah. And when you take the time to like, oh my God, reflect and realize, then it's like, wow, I am doing that thing. Or it could be that, you know what, that was then. I've outgrown it. I'm doing something much better. That happens as well. So before we wrap up, I do want to just shout out a few people. So I like to let people know how I know my guests. And so a future guest, and we've rescheduled several times, Sharon Harris, founder of DetroitLupus.org. She was like, oh, you gotta talk to Ericka. And as you mentioned earlier, before when we were talking, like we scheduled this a long time ago, right? You've been on the calendar for a minute. And so appreciate Sharon. But then recently I learned about your run for council through someone, Michael Van Tull, who my son, my 20-year-old son, went to daycare with his 20-year-old son. And so to see that, I was like, oh, Ericka, oh, yeah, I have her on, she's coming on the show. So I love it. It's a beautiful thing, the connections and the relationships, and, for people to be able to pour into one another and for things to just grow from there. So wanted to make sure I shout all that out. So you already—
But wait.
Oh, go ahead.
So yes, we just came out of Lupus Awareness Month. My mom, who was passed away, she was a lupus survivor. She passed from lupus complications. Okay. And that's how I met Sharon Harris. Yeah. And she's always loved on me like a auntie, sister, friend, mentor. I love her to pieces. Yeah. But my birthday twin is Sandy Epps.
Who I mentioned earlier. So again, to those that watch and listen, Sandy was on a podcast a little while ago. Sandy also was part of my 1 year podiversary. And we talked about Sandy, how she's doing a butterfly garden, love that. And I was telling you how I ran into Sandy this morning. And so that was so cool. I love it. I love to be able to, run into people, and we support one another. We have one another's back. It's a sisterhood, it's a connection, and to be able to pour into one another and to grow, I love it. And so how I met Sharon or knew of Sharon, it's actually been probably about 5 or 6 years, but I was leading a community a health thing. And I would do these Fit Fridays, and I would have people come and just, talk about different things. So it was for a Black organization. And so she talked about lupus. So I've been connected with her probably about 6 years through friends. So I think it was my friend, Micah Crawford, who I think was like, oh, you need to reach out to Sharon. And then another friend, Barb Franklin, knew Sharon as well. And so again, fast forward, Sandy was like, oh, here's a person that you should have on. who was Sharon. And again, reaching out to Sharon, and for various reasons, we've had to reschedule. And then Sharon is like, oh, gotta have Ericka. So here we are. Here we are.
They pour into me so much strength and resilience.
Right?
And I don't take it lightly at all. And I'm very thankful for Mr. Van Tull. He is my campaign manager, and he is the bomb. He is kind of leading in on like dad vibes. He's like, when do you sleep? I'm looking at your Facebook time, and by the time you finish posting and the time you start back posting, it's not enough time to sleep. So.
Well, tell him you schedule it, right? So you're not actually posting. But yeah. So wanted to make sure that I, mention all of that. And so you talked about it, Pride. So it is Pride Month. It's also Black Music Month. How do you relate the two, and which resonates with you and why?
They both resonate with me. One, I do consider myself a cisgender, heterosexual ally of the LGBTQ plus community. I've worked very hard with Danny Woods and several other people through Cassie Jones McBride at Planned Parenthood to spread awareness and education on community issues in the LGBTQ community. Met some awesome people, family members as well, that I know and love. And I love these people. But also music is a part of our community, right? Yeah. You can't have a party without people that love to dance. Because I am one of the people that love to dance and cut up and have a good time and be free in my own skin. So I connect in so many different ways. But I believe that love is love. Mm-hmm. And everyone deserves love, respect, and human rights.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, and actually, so it's appropriate for me to mention this, and I have mentioned it before, but this show started as a panel for an LGBTQ plus event. So I created the panel to give LGBTQ plus women of color and allies a platform to use their voices at an annual event. And 3 years later, it became a podcast and their YouTube channel, but it started as a panel. So again, for listeners and those that are watching, something can start as one thing and evolve to something else because it's all a journey. And so just go with that thing, right? And just tap into it. So something that you're passionate about, think about it, reflect on it, and see how you can take that to the next level, because that's exactly what I did and how we're here today. So Ericka Murria, again, before we wrap, what would you like to leave our listeners and watchers with?
I would love to leave everyone with the joy that I have. Take whatever you need. I have more than enough. My cup is running over. I believe in self-care and continuously filling my own cup, because while in community, so many people reach in to my cup, right? And so take what you need, have as much as you need. Don't take extras. We don't need to take extras. Just take what you need. And also you can find me on social media. On Instagram, my personal page is hi_I'm_Ericka. I do have my own podcast. We're on a hiatus right now due to the campaign. It's called The Single Mommy Hustle. And we talk about all Black everything that we need to talk about in the Black community. Everyone is welcome. And then also my campaign website is www.elect, ELECT, Ericka, ERICKA, Murria, MURRIA.com. And on all social media platforms is FTE Ericka Murria. So friends to elect Ericka Murria.
Very nice. So all of that will definitely be in the show notes. So for those that didn't catch it, you don't have to slow it down. Back in the day, the way that we would record stuff, we have a cassette recorder, we had the radio going, and that's how we recorded songs back in the day, right? So y'all ain't got to do that, okay? You don't have to do that because it will be in the notes. But Ericka G. Murria, Thank you so much for lending your voice to an intimate conversation with women of color, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I'm coming back, girl. We're gonna have some tea, some cookies and stuff.
Do we gotta do it in person? Things are opening up, so we can, sit together out. We can go over here on Livernois, sit in front of one of these coffee shops or something. But we'll put something together. Thank you, and thanks again to all of our listeners and those who are watching.